going on, you hooligans out there in the world? Welcome back to another episode. Hey, y'all. We are here doing it big time. The DMV. Doing it big time. How's everyone doing? I hope you're enjoying your week, enjoying your day, spending time with people you love, you care about, and you're here. Somehow your life has taken so many turns and twists, and my jacket's disgusting and dirty, and you ended up here with me on a podcast. Not just any podcast. There's a lot out there, right? You know, you got the Rogan show, you got Tim Dillon, you got Your Mom's House, Bart Kreischer. I'm trying to think what else I listen to. Lex Friedman. So many quality. The Kardashians. That's a good one. There's so many quality sources of entertainment out there. And you end up here with me in my bedroom listening to me talk and spew on about nothing. I don't know if we've ever covered anything in this podcast that has substance to it. But today, that's my goal. That's my goal. Few things to knock out up front. Go ahead and leave the video a like on YouTube, subscribe, notification bell. If you are on audio platforms, go ahead and leave it a review. We're going to hopefully be at 1,000 podcast reviews by February. That'd be awesome if we can get up to that many. 1,000. That's a crazy number. Thousands of people have listened to the podcast. It's also kind of crazy. It's kind of overwhelming, actually, to think about. It's a lot of people. It's like a theater. You know, it's like a theater of a. It's a theater. I know it's a lot of people, and it's kind of. It's a surreal feeling. So if you want to go ahead and leave it a review, that would help me out a lot. One other thing I wanted to get out of the way real quick is I did get my new mic in. Same setup as you can see right here for me. But I did get a brand new mic. I got the blue arm, which is the arm that Rogan uses on his podcast, which I couldn't find. I couldn't find it when I was trying to find my arm. So the one that I have right here. So I settled for the next best podcast arm, at least at the time on the market, which was this Rode boom arm. But for the other mic, I did get I'm sorry for clearing my throat. I know that's super unprofessional. I did get a blue arm boomstick. So I ordered that, and I did get a Shure SMB 7, I think it's called, SMB. Does it say it here? Shure SM7B. Made in Mexico. See, this shit's made in Mexico, bro. Not made in China. We don't do stuff that's made in China. We're not about that. Besides this Rode arm and my shirt that's made for my company I was manufacturing right out of China. Or is manufacturing either out of China or Pakistan. Which was hilarious. I used to get that question all the time. People would be like, well, where do you manufacture your clothing from? And I would reluctantly say China. And the reason why is because I didn't want, I was worried about being judged on where I was getting my stuff made, which I think now I don't really care, because at the time it was one of those things where if I made clothing here in this country, it would be incredibly expensive, even after you take into account the boating shipping that it cost from China. Because when you get stuff made from China, it has to go over by sea, and there's that huge body of water called the Pacific Ocean that the clothing has to travel over from China to here. And there was a few times where I was making clothing and it ended up being, let's just say, $8 a shirt. I bought 100, let's say 100 shirts, so $800. Then they would throw on an additional 50 cents not 50 cents. It's less than that, or it was more than that. And then they do like a flat rate of like $200 shipping. So it's $1,000 shipping, right? For 100 shirts. So $1,000 for shipping plus the shirts to get from China to here, make them for $8 a piece, sell them for $25 a piece. You can see the margin, $17 plus, just a bunch of other things that went. So the margin was about $12 to $18 profit per shirt, per whatever joggers or tank tops, whatever I was making at the time. And if I wanted to do the same thing here in this country, well, they started you out at 100 shirts for $10 a piece. So it was already $1,000 plus shipping, which they would charge the same, if not more, than what California was doing, and that was bulk customization of clothing. So I couldn't do it near me. I had to do it from Los Angeles. There was just no, at least I couldn't find anything near me that was willing to stay at a reasonable price, stay at a flat price, and allow for like 3 to 5 customization options for me. Because when you're making products, when you're making shirts, or when you're in the clothing industry at all, you have to separate. There's 2 ways that you separate your product versus everybody else. Either you as the individual have a huge brand as a person, where that if you put an elephant on a shirt, people are willing to buy it, or, which I didn't have because I wasn't anybody at the time. I tried to start a company before I had a following, which is, I think, backwards. It's not backwards. It's possible. It's harder to do, especially nowadays in the social media world. It's much easier to build up your brand, whether it be through social media or YouTube, which I guess is the same thing. And then you push a product from who you are. After you get sponsorships and you build up your revenue, you build up your worth by sponsoring certain things, by collabing with certain people, and then you do apparel, right? And then you launch. I got to get a new chair. I'm so sorry for the squeaks. And then you launch whatever it is, and people will buy it because if you, like, here's an example for Max Tuning, for example. So Max Tuning is a fitness influencer, I guess you could say. I guess that would be the best way to describe who he is. And he's been on YouTube since like 2012, 2013. And he came out with a candy company called Sour Candies. And when he came out with the company, it was something that was super interesting because you didn't know that he was going to come out with it. But from watching his videos religiously, like I did at one point in my life, probably 30 years I was watching his podcast, his YouTube videos pretty much every day. And he was posting every 3 days. I think he was posting. I think at one point it was every 2 days, but then it ended up being every 3 days. But what he did is he always talked about candy, right? He kind of built a brand around candy, leaving 7-Elevens and talking about the candy he got and saying, oh, it wasn't even sour, it wasn't even good. I liked the flavor here, didn't like the flavor there. And he kind of built up a brand around candy, that and margaritas. And so when he came out with his candy company, you weren't taken back. Like it wasn't news, right? It was shocking because it was such a unique product. But since he already had a relationship with candy through his platforms, it wasn't like huge news. So he was able to push a candy company. And now he has, I've had some of his candy and it's actually delicious. It's, I think it's called not Sour Heads. Might just be called like Sour Candies. But so that's probably the most efficient way to push a product. It'll push anything right now in this marketing climate we live in with social media. But the one that I chose, which I didn't really even think of at the time, I just kind of impulsively did it, is I chose a market where you don't have a following. You come up with a company, you build a social media for the company, you build a following base for the company's page. Meanwhile, my personal page, I was also growing slightly from YouTube which ended up, you can still watch the videos on this on my YouTube channel on where you're watching this podcast right now. And I ended up doing like weight loss challenges. I ended up doing workout videos. I ended up doing food challenges, eating a certain amount of food, and eating 3 days of just I think I did 3 days of just vegetables, which had me shitting every orifice of my body. I was just pooping everywhere. Like, there was so much fiber flying through my veins. It was disgusting. Sorry for that. Too much information. But I did that. I did like 2 days of just fruit, which was brutal. I was cramping up. I had so much sugar in my body. I ate, I was eating a lot of, I think it was potatoes. I think potatoes are a fruit. I was eating a lot of potatoes, and they were destroying. I think it was potatoes. I remember I was eating some weird fruit, but I ended up eating like dragon fruit. I ended up eating like star fruit, like just weird types of fruits. And I did videos like that. I did a video where I ate only Big Macs for 2 days straight, or maybe it was 3 days straight. I did a bunch of like epic cheat day videos. Anyway, so I was doing YouTube like that on the side while I was also building my Silence Fitness page, which is the clothing company that I'm talking about. If you haven't been able to piece those together. And so what my plan was, which I don't think I've ever talked about it, but what my plan was to build the page up to the point where it had customers, regular customers, but there was also people who were interested in the company. Like, oh, that company, I like what they stand for. I like what they do. I like the way they move. I like the people who follow the page. I enjoy the community. I enjoy what they stand for. I enjoy the owner of the company. And then so once I got up to like 2,500 followers, I decided to, instead of me I was going to continue, but I just didn't have the growth that was going to sustain a company because I couldn't promote it and market it as well as I could if I had a bigger page. I decided to reach out and do affiliate marketing, which at the time that didn't cross my mind. Like I didn't know that that's what it was called. I just knew what I saw. So I saw like Gymshark athletes getting codes, people using codes, and Alpha Elite and Ghost Protein, Flag Nor Fail, just a bunch of different fitness companies using codes and athletes. So I was like, well, how does that work? So I had to figure out how to develop a system where I could I had to first find members, people. Once I did that, I narrowed them down. I got like 50 emails. Like it was like 50 to 60 emails. I ended up going with 7 athletes. The 7 athletes all got a code. And then they promoted my product. I gave them free product. And then they get kickbacks from all the products they sold. It was like, I forget what the numbers were, but they got a profit of each product they sold. And I know I was able to track it because every time I see that the code was used, I knew that obviously their code's connected to their name. And anyways, that's what happened. Where was I going with that? I don't know where I was going with that. But yeah, it was a learning moment for me. It was a great opportunity for me. It's something that I like to talk about often because I think it's super valuable I think it's a good idea to start a company. I really do. I know a lot of people say there's a lot of risk, but there's only as much risk in it if you put that much risk in it. Like I was smart because I made sure that I never took a loan out for it. If I didn't have the money for the purchase, I just worked more hours. I made more cash. I did what it took to make the money. I pushed more products so I could buy more inventory. I never used a credit card for anything. I never took a loan from the bank. I just did everything as safe as I possibly could, as safely as I possibly could. And I think with business and I think with money in general, you have to, up to a point, you have to listen to people, right? You have to listen to people, But I think the people who you're going to get the most information off of, people who are the most valuable teachers when it comes to finance and when it comes to business and anything, are people that are not going to talk to you. You have to ask them questions. And I think that's super valuable. Like, I know for me, within these past 6 months, maybe longer than that, let's just say the past year, I've taken everything I have and everything, and I've grown it all, right? Like money, especially, investments, relationship, work, school, everything. I've just kind of 10x everything. Who's that? Who says that? 10x? Ed Milet. I think that's who says it. And I think the reason why is, so I think post-COVID is going to be a huge separation, and those who, you're going to be able to tell the people who during the shutdown, they kind of locked themselves into a world and just worked super duper hard on everything, and they were able to grow projects on their own. And I think with time, you're going to see a separation of those who kind of, so, I mean, I don't want to get too offensive here, but there was a lot of people who, and there still are, and they still will be, a lot of people who struggle big time post-COVID, during COVID, with money and rent and all the other financial things that are going to come up, because it's going to be treacherous. I can't drink Diet Coke anymore on a podcast. It's super unprofessional. But at the same time, there's also huge opportunities in the market right now. Like, if you just take a second to look at all the opportunities that there are to start things, whether it be a podcast, whether it be a YouTube channel, whether it be painting and selling your painting on Etsy, whether it be custom desks, because everyone's staying at home right now, people are looking for cool desks, whether it be custom lamp shields, because people are at home. So anything that's at home, you can get into. Like, you could get into selling, I don't know, you could start making custom shelves, you could start making custom chairs, you can make a whole business off of, like I said, lights. There's a lot of things you can get into right now. And the platforms are the most accessible that they've ever been, and there's the most people working with the platforms. Etsy, Pinterest, Amazon, Google, all these things that allow your stay-at-home job to be executed in a very successful way. I think there's a huge opportunity right now for people to come out of COVID with a base, a creation, something that they own 100% of, something that they feel confident about, something that can allow them to grow in the future, whether it be a passion project, whether it be a passion project turned business, whether it be a startup that they never had time to do. There's a lot of time, and it's going to be really interesting. It's something that I'm looking forward to, honestly, is to see the separation of those who assuming that they were able to, decided to take a step forward and build something during a time when everything's falling apart, right? There's this idea that life gives you opportunities, and it gives you opportunities in times when you are the most blinded and you don't see them. Like, COVID's a perfect example. You know, just utter chaos going on everywhere. Economy shutting down, people staying home, people getting arrested for having outdoor church ceremonies, burning down of buildings, extreme acts of violence against minorities, and white people, protests that are going on for days, just a fear, our president getting COVID and fighting it off, just a lot of things. You know, there's a huge reason, and it's super okay to just do nothing, right? It's super okay to just collect the money, save it, have fear, complain, blame other things, blame people, blame the government, the economy, say it's not my fault. You could do that, and it's kind of the cool thing to do right now, honestly. It really is. It's like the cool thing to do right now, to just bitch and complain about everything. But there's going to be a real surgence at the end of this of those who didn't do that, those who took the bull by the reins and they grew something that is theirs, that is going to allow them to advance in their life. And I that's something I'm super excited for. And I feel like within the past 8 months, I've really taken the time to poke aggressively into people about finances. Like, I was super transparent with people because I think this stuff is super important. I think finances are something that never gets talked about. And I've done podcasts about it before, and I'm sure I've said things that are not right, and I'm sure I've said things that sound a lot easier than they actually are. But that's okay to me. That's if you have a podcast, or if you talk to anybody long enough, let's say you sit down with an employee, or you sit down with a friend or a family member, you share a few drinks, you share a few stories, 3 hours go by. I guarantee at least 3 or 4 or 5 times during that conversation, you said something that wasn't right. You said something that was wrong. But 90% of the time, you fix that train of thought so it's right. And that's what I find to be the most helpful with this podcast, with this medium of information, is to kind of use it that way. I kind of use it in a way to listen to myself, hear what I say, go back and listen to it again in a few months and be like, well, that didn't make sense. Why? What was I doing at the time? Like, if I listen to episode 1 to 50, there's probably so many things I said that just were way off the mark and just factually wrong. And I think that's why I am willing to share my mistakes with finances and things that I think I've learned that I'm going to continue to use that help me. And let's just start with the biggest mistakes I ever made. It sounds so cheesy, but I think where I messed up the most on is not saving enough money. Not saving enough money. I remember when I was working at the restaurant, there was weekends where I was making $800 to $1,000, like between a Thursday to Sunday, double Sunday, double Saturday. A chance of making $600-ish Friday, making $200, and then following that out with a solid Thursday night. Making good money, waking up Monday morning sometimes with $1,000, in my pocket, just straight cash. And I was talking to my my friend about this, and I was saying there's something that's really fascinating about when you don't have money, you spend the most money. Like you it's almost like it's self-sabotage. Like you self-sabotage yourself. It's like shooting yourself in the foot. It's like when you're depressed, you don't do things to become undepressed. You continue to not shower, you continue not to work out, you continue to eat like shit, you continue to never take your vitamins, you block yourself off from other people. And it's the same thing with money, right? Once you don't have money and you get a little bit of money, instead of saving it, investing it, putting it back into certain accounts that have, that make you money, or putting it in the market, put in the S&P, the QQQ, the NASDAQ, the Dow Jones, you just go ahead and spend it, right? I did a decent job, so I opened a CD account when I got my first job. I think I was 14 years old. I got my first job when I was 12, I think, 12 or 13. But when I got like my first consistent job where I was like on the schedule, like I was actually working consistently, I opened a CD account where I think I started out, I'm going to be super transparent with everybody. I started out with $500. I took $100, I think every paycheck, maybe not, maybe it wasn't every paycheck. Yeah, so once I got promoted to manager, then I started taking $100 every week, and I put it in my CD account. And it grew to about $2,000, but it was only making me like a tenth of 1% each month, or every 3 months. So it was making me like, maybe it was 1%. It was making me like $40 a year. So I just recently closed that down, and I transferred it to my savings account, which I'm probably going to invest half of that into the market. Should have done it on Monday, but anyways, I do dollar investing in the market. So I just set up every 2 weeks, I put in an additional $100 in the market, 50 for S&P, 50 for QQQ. And those are the only ETFs I own. And, that's, $1,200. in the S&P each year, which is $12,000 over 10 years, $12,000 over 10 years for the QQQ. So that's kind of, and I'm going to scale that as I go. I'm going to bump it up to maybe $200 each month for the QQQ instead of 100, and then 500, and then 1,000. Maybe as my income gets higher, I'm going to correlate that with more money I'm investing, dividends, kickbacks that way, interest off, compound interest off of the money I make, buying in 1 month when the market's down 20% and doing that for like 3 straight months. Well, once it gets past that 20%, you're all profit off of that $50 you invested. So there's a lot of different things I'm doing right now, but I think the biggest lesson I wish I did, which I wish I did more of, is saving a lot of money. Like, it's so hard for me to, I get so mad at myself because my previous job, I was making 18 years old, making $35,000, $40,000, $45,000 a year, and I could have saved $20,000 to $30,000 a year, right? Sometimes I could have saved so much money and invested so much money into the market, and I would already have hundreds of thousands of dollars. But you can't think like that. But that would be the biggest thing. So if you're my age, or if you're older than me and you're not doing it, or if you're younger than me, start saving money. Pinch the dollars. Make sure your tires are filled with air. Get on the highway. Stay off the back roads. Don't buy things you don't need. That's like my biggest thing is I no longer buy things I don't need. I don't. I only wear 4 pairs of shorts. It sounds disgusting, but I clean them. I wear pretty much my work shirt every day because I work pretty much every day. I don't buy food anymore. I just grocery shop. I pay my car insurance, school, and everything else I just save and I invest. But you have to save. You got to start saving super early. And it's, like I was saying at the beginning, it's you spend money when you don't have money. So once you put away, $1,000 in your bank account, you become addicted to watching $200 go into your savings account each week. So $800 additional times 12, 8,000, 16, 96,000. After a year, you're going to have $10,600 in your savings account. Accumulating that money is going to be much more addicting than spending things that you don't need. Like, only thing I had from spending all that money was a fat belly because everything was food. Everything was pointless things. You can't fall for the traps, right? There's traps in life. The traps are there's some traps in life that you just can't make. Starting a family way too early can mess you up. Staying in a relationship that you shouldn't be in is gonna mess you up. Buying a house way too early is not good. Buying a car that's out of your price range is a bad idea. Like, some of these things you cannot do. Like, the house and the family and the relationship are the 3 main things that if you're in right now, you might be too deep, unfortunately, but you just can't make those mistakes way too early. Some things you also got to be careful of is graduating. It depends on what college you go to, how expensive it is, because that loan is going to have to get paid off eventually. So one loan you can't file bankruptcy for. Really, your wedding, a house, all these things happen within 3 years of each other, and they come out to like $100,000. And you keep pulling your loan out, which I'm sure you probably don't have good credit up to that point where you start pulling those loans out. You're never going to be able to pay off the money, right? You're never going to be able to pay off. So you're starting out in a low place, right? You're starting out in debt because people, I don't know why. I mean, I just think the same thing, like way back in the day, but credit isn't your money. Credit's money by the bank. And that's why the interest rates are crazy for credit cards, like 25% for some credit cards. You're never going to pay that back. So you got to start saving early. You got to start investing early. you got to start checking your expenses like obsessively. Like I check my expenses. The first thing I used to do in the morning a year ago was first thing I did in the morning is grab my phone, check Instagram, and check YouTube. The first thing I do in the morning now is I check how the market's doing. I check Donald Trump's Twitter because his Twitter has a direct impact on the market. Then I check my bank statements to make sure there's no fraudulent purchases overseas. I make sure that all my expenses haven't gone up, that they're all staying the same. I make sure my scheduled payments are coming out. And it also just makes me feel good, to see the money. So save money, cash. Every time you get cash, just keep the cash, right? Keep the cash on you. Put it in a safe or whatever, because cash is always going to be there. You know what I mean? Like cash is like, if we go through another Great Depression and the banks are faulty on everything, and for some reason the insurance doesn't back what you previously had in the checking account, or that's another thing, build your credit too, which I'll get to. You have cash. Cash is solid. It's always going to be there. It's super powerful. It's obviously decreasing in power right now, but it's super powerful. I was talking to my buddy, and he's actually possibly going to get gold, which I see is super crazy. It's not crazy. It makes perfect sense, but I've never thought of gold as super valuable, but it is. It's like the one thing that's universally valuable. And that's what's interesting about Bitcoin. I don't have money in Bitcoin, but Bitcoin could be the next thing that's internationally an agreed source of income. Build your credit. Don't max out your credit card. Pay it off in full each time. Don't do that nonsense 30% payments. I thought I was doing that just 4 months ago. Now I pay it off in full. Be smart with your points. Don't get points and use it on dumb crap. You use your points on things that you actually want to use them on. Don't max out the credit cards. Buy stuff on credit. Pay it off on time each month. Get a car that you can afford. Be very stingy with your interest rates. I just refinanced my car. I was paying almost 8% interest. I'm paying like 4.2 now. So that's saving me $2,000 additional to what I was spending. $2,000, I could put that in the market. $2,000 with a 10% return is $20. No, $200. Yeah. $2,000, 10% return over a year. I made $200 on it. $2,200 makes 10%. You see what I mean? So it can turn into hundreds, thousands of dollars after a certain amount of time. Invest the money. Be smart with your investments. I say invest in ETFs. Invest in the S&P. Don't stop investing in the S&P. Only time you lose money in the market is when you take money out. So when the market's crashing, buy a crap ton of stuff. Like, it's weird. Warren Buffett says the best time to buy in the market is when you can get a $1 item for 66 cents. For some reason in the market, by the way, I'm not an expert at all. I'm not a financial advisor at all. So don't listen to anything I'm saying. Like, just take it with a grain of salt. This is what I do. This is what helps me. But I could also go back in 5 years and tell you I'm complete broke. Like, I'm completely broke. I could do that. So don't take what I say as truth. This is just what I like to do and what I'm doing right now. And when the market's down, buy. Because you got to realize when the market's down, the reason why the market's down is because people are selling, right? But once there's an indicator the market's going to go back up, there's going to be a mass overload of buying again because people are going to be looking for quick profits. And it exists, right? But if you're buying a butt ton of stocks as the market's going down, you're going to have so much interest. You're going to make so much compound interest as the market's shooting back up. Because you're going to be making money off of, let's say the S&P dropped $200 and it's at $100 and you bought, 10 shares at $150. Well, once it gets past $150, you're profiting $150 to $300, $1,500, I think, if my math's right, plus more. Because the market, if you look at the graph of the market, the S&P over the last 100 years, it goes up the whole time, but it's like it has up and down effect as it goes up. But if you just take the top hills, the growth, the peak growth parts of every every time it peaks and goes back down, if you connect that dot, it's a straight line up. It's not like a line that's flat then up. It goes up the entire time. So invest, save all the cash you can, constantly put away cash. Make sure you have 6 to a year emergency fund, which I use as my savings account. Use credit, build your credit, save your cash, 6 to 9 months, 6 to 1 year emergency fund. Invest your money. Be smart with your spending habits. Reduce your spending habits as much as you can. Fight for your interest. Try so hard to keep your interest super low. Pay your credit cards off in full. Don't buy stupid shit. Eat at your house. Don't always eat out. Be smart with your vacations. Realize that weekends away are really nice. Like, I like week-long vacations sometimes, but even week-long vacations after 4 days, you're like, okay, I kind of want to get back to my normal way of life. So just be smart with your everyday actions, because they do build on each other. Like, it is a compound book. It is a compound reaction. There's a book called The Joys of Compounding. Read that book. It's a beautiful book. It talks about compound interest in the market. It talks about compound growth with everything, with your diet, with your workout schedule, with your relationship. If you could do something long enough, and then when you think you're doing well, do something better, it builds on top of each other. Compound your entire life. Like Albert Einstein said, it's the eighth wonder of the world, because it is. It's the one thing that it's magical, what it brings back to you. Like Warren Buffett's a billionaire because what he did was save money and invest money. Like, to build wealth, you don't really need to work that hard. You need to work hard enough, live like a normal person, and after 20 years, you'll be a millionaire just because you're smart with your habits. So that's me. Don't take anything I say. I'm not a professional. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm nowhere near that. Trust me, I'm not that. But I have figured out something that's been working for me, and it's something that I enjoy doing. So I just want to share it with people, because that's why I started this podcast, to share what I do, share my life with you people, so you guys can listen and hopefully get something out of it. But this weekend's coming up. I'm planning to have Taylor on a podcast. Depends on how much homework we have. But I'm very excited to bring out the new mic. I'm looking at changing up the setup a little bit. Ideally, I would like to have Taylor on the podcast at least once a week. So we can just banter and talk. Because, like, we had a beautiful conversation yesterday about transgenders in Canada and in prisons in San Francisco. And I feel like there's a lot of insight that we share off each other. Like, she's very factually motivated, and I let my emotions take over my decisions pretty much more than she does. And I think we really can showcase how what she thinks could be transitioned to the way I think, or what I think could be transitioned to the way that she thinks. And you guys can see the fluidity of that. And also, people love listening to us talk, which I think is super, super fascinating. I think it's fascinating to see some couples still talk to each other. I don't know. I do know that COVID has not been good for a lot of relationships. For us, it's been the best, honestly. It's so awesome. Like, living with her is, like, not hard at all. Just need to feed her Ben and Jerry's and give her attention. But that's with everybody. That's with me. But yeah, so I think this is episode 129. If you guys could so there's a couple links in the description. If you guys want to pull those up, you can get yourself a free stock on Robinhood. If you want to do that, just click that link. I also get a free stock, so help me out too, which I'll probably just sell off and buy into the S&P. But unless it's like Apple. But even with Apple, I might do the same thing. What else? Oh, yeah. Follow me on Instagram. leave a rating on the podcast. God, no more Diet Coke on these podcasts, man. Super unprofessional. I'm all about being a pro. But in the meantime, I got to get going to work. I got a meeting. Then I work for 1 hour today. But yeah, do everything, reviews, like, comment, subscribe, follow button, all that good stuff. I'll catch you guys in episode 130 of the Michael Lab Show with a slightly new setup and a brand new mic. And you guys can see my new arm, which is super cool. Love you guys. Thank you so much for listening. I'll catch you guys in episode 130 of the Michael Lab Show. Peace out. See ya. Thank you.